Thank you and your companions for joining us on the YouTube channel of Nghe An Newspaper, the digital social publication of Nghe An Newspaper and radio and television. Right after this, we will come to the latest news that we have just updated.
On September 15th, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski suggested that NATO countries should consider imposing a no-fly zone over Ukraine to protect the territory and people of the European Union from Russian drones. The Polish foreign minister's remarks came after a suspected Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace last week. NATO air defense fighters shot down the drones, although they were not armed. According to the Polish foreign minister, extending such missions to Ukrainian airspace is necessary to protect the security of the allies. However, this decision requires the consensus of the members. Ukraine's airspace, pushed by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky shortly after the conflict began, has been discussed by NATO allies since the Biden administration in 2022 but has been abandoned over concerns that it could lead to direct confrontation with Russian aircraft, increasing the risk of instability in the region. The current Polish proposal is seen as limited to addressing the issue of Russian drones approaching the border between Ukraine and NATO countries, the analysis said. Meanwhile, on the same day, a British Foreign Office spokesperson said that incursions into NATO airspace were completely unacceptable, stressed that the UK stood in solidarity with NATO allies in condemning such reckless actions. The spokesperson warned that Russia should understand that its continued aggression only strengthens the unity of NATO allies and strengthens our resolve to stand with Ukraine. Any further intrusion would be met with force. The Russian embassy in London has not commented on the theft of Russian ambassador Andrei Kellin's notebook.
On September 15th, Ukrainian parliamentarian Fyodor Venislavsky said that the conflict with Russia is gradually coming to an end thanks to the efforts of U.S. President Donald Trump. Accordingly, speaking in an interview with Ukrainian radio station NV, he said that it is clear that the conflict is coming to an end. Some people have admitted it, others have not. But in fact, we are moving in this direction. Certain political actions have begun. Mr. Venislavsky noted that the proposals of U.S. President Donald Trump have every chance of ending the conflict and moving closer to peace. Speaking to the White House correspondents in Bedminster, New Jersey on September 14th, President Trump said that negotiations between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in a trilateral meeting with the participation of the U.S. will take place soon. Previously, President Trump said that he might have to directly handle negotiations to resolve the conflict in Ukraine, citing what he said were deep disagreements between Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky. During his presidential campaign last year, Mr. Trump repeatedly pledged to help the war in Russia and Ukraine quickly end. However, despite Mr. Trump's mediation efforts, the war has shown no signs of warming up as the parties have not made concessions and there are still too many differences on the terms. To end the conflict, Mr. Trump has also admitted that handling this crisis is not easy.
In recent days, the Russian army has continued to push back the Ukrainian defense forces from the city of Kobyang. A strategically important defense point for the Kharkiv region at IT, was previously reported that Russian assault groups had penetrated into the territory of Kobyang through underground traffic routes, such as sewers from the outskirts into the inner city. After capturing the medical university building and using it as a new springboard, the assault groups of the Russian armed forces are concentrating inside the city and continuing to expand the fighting to the city hospital area. As usual, in the urban combat environment, there is sometimes extremely contradictory information coming from both sides. For example, some sources claim that the territory of the Bulge is gradually becoming a so-called gray zone, where neither side has stable control. In such situations, the key role is assigned to the UAV operators, who are supposed to control the airspace as well as the ground in the gray zone. According to reports from the field by both forces and local military observers, this is exactly what is happening in the city of Kharkiv province. Russian sources also emphasize that drones from both sides are operating almost continuously, but there are no large-scale, powerful attacks which only involve small groups of troops. Part of the situation in the city can be assessed by reports from enemy sources, which show the complexity of the situation facing the Ukrainian armed forces. Ukrainian military experts emphasize that the supply lines to the Ukrainian outposts have been severely disrupted, as the eastern, northern and southern areas were previously controlled by the Russian military. Meanwhile, the Russian forces, after taking control of the outlying strongholds in the northwest of Kubiang such as Rad Kipka and Mine, are continuing to attack from the northwest of the city to the west, forming a comprehensive envelopment and cutting off the traffic routes to the city. Military experts believe that without reinforcements and ammunition, it will be extremely difficult for the Ukrainian group to continue to resist, and even the risk of being completely wiped out is inevitable. Experts have repeatedly noted the key importance of Kubiang for the stability of the defense system of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kharkiv area. The loss of the city could lead to the collapse of the front in several areas at once, especially since the Russian army will be able to use it as a springboard to launch an offensive against the city of Izium or concentrate its forces to increase pressure on the Ukrainian positions in Vopshan.
Amid the manpower shortage, Ukrainian commanders say they have used ground-based UAVs in a variety of ways to overcome this situation. Last week, when summarizing the battlefield developments in August, Ukrainian Army Commander-in-Chief Alexander Sysky said the enemy has a threefold advantage in terms of manpower and resources. In the main directions, the Russian army can have a 4 to 6-fold advantage over us. Michael Kman, a military expert at the US-based Carnegie Foundation for International Peace, described the current period as the most difficult period for the Ukrainian army since the beginning of the conflict, in which the shortage of manpower and the quality of training remain major obstacles. One of the solutions that the army has neglected to apply to compensate for this situation is to take advantage of UAVs, deploying them for high-risk missions and in creative ways. Alexander Chepenka, commander of the UAV unit of the 108th Independent Assault Battalion of Ukraine, said that they are using ground UAVs for at least 8 missions, including mine clearance, cargo transport, transportation of dead soldiers, medical evacuation, mine suppression, suicide attacks, and intelligence gathering. YP Chenka said that equipping ground UAVs with warheads, turning them into suicide weapons, is the most promising method. The commander explained that this MUAV can carry a much larger amount of explosives. With flying UAVs, FPV UAVs can carry no more than 10 kilograms of explosives, while the smallest ground UAV can carry a payload of more than 20 kg. When attacking, this type of UAV will approach the target and then detonate the explosives it carries to cause damage. Ukrainian soldiers cannot safely approach the enemy that close. In addition to suicide attacks, ground UAVs are also equipped with rifles or other types of firepower to open fire on enemy positions. Chan Chao said this is the most complex and difficult function to deploy, but it will help the unit do things that even the bravest soldiers cannot do. Mine clearance is currently a very dangerous task for soldiers who are used to having a large number of UAVs patrolling along the front line. Ground UAVs not only do this for them but also carry more mines in each mission. In addition to mines, ground UAVs can also transport food, water and ammunition. DEP-CA revealed that each medium-sized drone can carry more goods than 10 soldiers combined. Unlike UAV/0, ground drones also have the ability to clear mines. They will go ahead of the infantry formation to check if the route is mined or not. UAVs are often damaged if they run over mines, but they significantly limit casualties for soldiers. According to Chenka's account, the 108th Battalion has begun using ground UAVs to retrieve their dead comrades on the front lines instead of risking sending at least 8 people for each mission. However, Ukrainian soldiers admit that ground UAVs still have many disadvantages. They do collect intelligence through cameras but are not as effective as the UAVs above because there are many obstacles below that obscure their vision. Ground UAVs can also easily lose connection with the control unit due to interference, run over by mines or hit by Russian fire, turning them into expensive scrap metal. Many Ukrainian companies have integrated AI or other technology to make UAVs operate without a human operator, but they have not been able to apply it widely. This risk has caused Japshin Chenka's unit to only use ground UAVs for medical evacuation missions when there is no other choice. If the UAV is disabled while transporting a wounded person, the person will be stuck in an exposed area and further away from the base, where they will be detected by the enemy. That would force their comrades to risk their lives to rescue the trapped soldiers. The same could happen if a UAV is used to collect the dead. Chenka also warned about the Russian forces' ability to learn quickly. According to him, every time Ukraine and its allies discover a new way to use UAVs, the question is not whether the Russians will copy it, but when. The real question, said Dep Chan Chow, is who will do it faster. We need to implement these things faster than the Russians. That he also called on European companies to work closely with Ukrainian businesses to accelerate the pace of innovation.